And welcome to the Bloomfield, Connecticut Public Safety Committee meeting. Thank you all for coming out tonight. And I'm just going to situate it here, trying to do my split screen. So pardon me for 1 second. And India, I believe you were resending a link for Chief Hammock.
He was on a prayer call.
Okay, so why don't we give him maybe 1 more minute to see if we can get him in, since he is starting after roll call. We'll just pause for maybe about 30 seconds to a minute, see if he gets onto the call. Okay, well, I'm not sure if I see,
He's going to be coming. We had some Micro 365 conversions at the PD, so his email address has changed, and I just found out that information, so I'm sending him to the new email. So you can go
Okay.
on to fire if you wish, or you can start actually, if you wanted to talk about the mosquito control, you can choose to move the agenda around if you like.
okay, so let's do that then. I know there were some issues around mosquito control, hence it is on the agenda this evening. I think before we kind of deep dive into it, is there anybody else on from the public?
We have people in the building. We have Ms. Paula Jones that's here.
Okay, if Ms. Jones or anybody else, can we maybe just get the public comments out the way, please? And then hopefully by then the chief will be in, but we can talk about the mosquito issue and then join with the rest of the standard agenda.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I think you need to make a motion to amend the agenda and then move public comments up.
Okay, if I could have a
Or
second
you can
to
say
move.
without objection. If there's no objections, then you can.
Well, I'll make a motion, just so everyone has a say. I make a motion that we move public comments to the top while we await chief's presence on the meeting.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
I'm waiting for India to get back over to her setup.
I got
All in
it.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, if we have anyone that would like to make a public comment, you can please present yourself at this time.
Thank you very, oops, is this on? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair and subcommittee members. I'm here to comment on the agenda item regarding mosquito control and prevention. I chair the Conservation, Energy and Environment Committee, the CEEC, and I'm speaking on behalf of the committee. At the July CEC meeting, a question came up about the nature of pesticide and herbicide spraying in town. Town residents have raised concerns to both the CEEC and the BBC about spraying on town property as well as on private property. As a next step, the committee is trying to find out what products the town uses and what policies, if any, the town has regarding pesticide application. Which brings us to the topic, discussion regarding mosquito control and prevention. I understand that Councilor Mahan suggested widespread spraying for mosquitoes. While mosquitoes are certainly plentiful this year, immediately jumping to a solution of spraying is a bad idea. It's a short-term fix that may temporarily kill mosquitoes, but could and likely will have unintended consequences such as harming beneficial insects and wildlife. I'd like to remind everyone of the miracle chemical DDT and its near eradication of our national bird, the bald eagle, as documented by Rachel Carson in Silent Spring. Point being that spraying shouldn't be the first response. There are easy steps to take to manage mosquito habitat and to reduce the likelihood of being bitten. I noticed that mosquito control and information is posted on the town website, and I understand that was pushed out this week in terms of the weekly newsletter, which is great. There is really good practical guidance there for residents. Managing the habitat in your yard can be as simple as dumping containers of standing water on a weekly basis. If you venture beyond your yard, spray yourself with products containing DEET. And if you prefer organics, there are good ones available that will keep the bugs off. And I actually meant to bring a prop with me. There's an organic I use that is great in terms of it doesn't kill the insects, but it keeps them away from you and they won't light on you. So if you don't want, pesticides. So I'm really here to offer the CEC's assistance and advisement on environmental issues. One of our charges is to, quote, investigate the nature, extent, causes, and sources of factors detrimental to the physical environment of the town. We would be happy to work with the town to educate the public on sustainable practices for mosquito and tick control. And perhaps the committee can sponsor some educational programs on this topic next spring in advance of the next season. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else for public comment?
We have someone on the line, Ms. Sharon Mann. Just go to her right now.
Unmute, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in, right?
Mhm.
Okay, good evening, Safety Committee. My name is Sharon Mann. I live at 1 Adams Road, one of the places people are complaining about mosquitoes, and I chair the Bloomfield Beautification Committee. I am here representing my committee in requesting that we not spray our public gardens or use an aerial spray to eliminate the abundance of mosquitoes that we are seeing in our community. Mosquitoes can be a nuisance during the warmer months, but it is important to remember that they are also a crucial part of our ecosystem. They serve as a food source for a variety of animals, including birds, fish, and bats. Additionally, some species of mosquitoes help to pollinate plants. Spraying for mosquitoes may seem like a quick solution to the problem, but it can have negative consequences for the environment. It can affect our quality of life. The chemicals used in mosquito sprays can harm not only mosquitoes, but also other beneficial insects, such as Paula mentioned, as bees and butterflies. These chemicals can also contaminate water sources and harm aquatic life. And even, quote, organic sprays often cannot differentiate between good and bad beneficial insects. There are many natural alternatives to spraying for mosquitoes that are both effective and environmentally friendly available today. For example, planting mosquito repelling plants such as citronella, lavender, and basil can help to keep mosquitoes at bay. Additionally, eliminating areas of standing water where mosquitoes breed can help to reduce their population. Even wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants when working outside and using appropriate bug repellents, as mentioned on our town website. By taking a more environmentally conscious approach to mosquito control, we can help to protect our delicate ecosystem while still enjoying the outdoors. I hope you will consider our request not to spray. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Ms. Gail Riley who would like to speak next.
Hi, Gail Riley, Maple Avenue. My comment is on a totally different subject. I would have to say in the last 3 months, there's been serious accidents at the intersection of Maple Avenue, Brown Street, and Mountain Ave. The last accident took out the signal box and we had no four-way signal for a good 2 to 3 days. I know Mountain Ave is a state road, but there's got to be a better way of handling accidents. This last one, they had four-way stop signs at the intersection for a day or two. Then there were only 2 stop signs. And people were confused. I was quite surprised that there wasn't another accident at that intersection. But I don't believe that that is an intersection that should be flashing at 10 p.m. You have it flashing, I believe, red from Maple to Brown, and the caution flashing on Mountain Avenue going to Loeffler and towards the center of town. I know I've complained before, and I've been told that it's a state road and it's out of the town's hand, but I wish somebody could look into it because it's frustrating, and one of these days there's going to be a death caused by an accident there. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have online at the moment.
Okay. Thank you all for your comments. On the heels of the discussion or the public comments regarding mosquitoes, control and prevention methods, I'd like to make a motion that we kind of just move that up to the top of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
I shouldn't be taking notes like I'm still a secretary on a board, but I do, so you guys pardon me for a second. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for your public comments, and as well, thank you, Councilor Mahan, for bringing the concerns of the public that you've heard to the forefront so that we can further investigate what some remedies could possibly be for the town, if any, as well as talking about best practices and things that people can individually do to mitigate some of their exposure to mosquitoes and diminish the presence of them in their personal yard or areas. I would like to ask, although I see, thank you so much for coming on, Dan Carter and Amy Kraus. Councilor Mahan, would you like to open this agenda item?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Councilor Lloyd. First, I do want to say, excuse me for the language in which I used. This came from me going around door knocking over the last few weeks, getting signatures for my primary petition. And in that, I met a lot of residents that specifically asked about spraying. Since I'm not an expert in the field, I then, relayed the question to our town staff, who I'm glad that they framed this item as discussion regarding mosquito control and prevention methods, because that's what this is really about. It's much wider than, just talking about one particular option of spraying. It's about, discussing all the different options that we have, including a lot of options that I was able to get from a couple posts that I made on Facebook. So that was pretty effective. So I requested for Dan Carter and Amy Kraus to also be part of this conversation, because like I said, I am not an expert in the field, but I do want to talk to those folks that may know a lot more about this subject than I presently do. I don't know if Dan and Amy, if you guys have anything that you would want to add to the conversation or anything that you prepared.
Councilman Mahan, Dan Carter speaking. I could just give you a little just background information. I don't profess to be an expert on mosquitoes either, but I did do some research based on your request. And, essentially there are two ways to treat for mosquitoes. Mosquitoes need water to reproduce. So when you have puddled water in your yard or in a bird bath or anywhere for that matter, in an old wheelbarrow or anything, the mosquitoes will lay larvae in the water, and that's how they reproduce. So essentially, to treat for mosquitoes or mosquito issue, you can either use a larvicide, which attacks the eggs that are laid in the water, or an adulticide for adult flying mosquitoes that are already in the air. And that is a pesticide application, which is a mist. I think that larvicide applications are generally preferred. And if you refer to the DEEP website, there's a lot of guidance on there how to prevent mosquitoes from reproducing in your yard. And generally, it goes along with eliminating any ponding or puddled water. The issue with treating adult mosquitoes and having to spray pesticides is, the pesticide mist that has to be sprayed out. Number one, it's very temporary and it's indiscriminate. So there is the possibility, if you're going to spray a pesticide as a mist to try and take out adult mosquitoes, that you're also going to take out other beneficial insects. So in other words, you can't just spray and just eliminate mosquitoes. There is the possibility of affecting other types of insects that may be beneficial. The other thing is you cannot spray on a K through 8 school. There are statutes in place that do not allow that unless it is approved in writing by the superintendent of schools as a health concern, and that the town or the school system also has to have an integrated pest management policy, which identifies mosquitoes as an issue. So spraying on schools isn't necessarily a recommended practice and would have to be approved. The other thing is any aquatic site. So, as I just said, mosquitoes reproduce in bodies of water. So, but if you're going to spray on a pond or in a swamp, you have to get an aquatic permit from DEP, which takes approximately 8 to 12 weeks to obtain, which we don't have. In addition, right now, the town doesn't have any budgeted monies associated with spraying. And the other thing, the window for spraying for mosquitoes is between June and September. Essentially in September, when the air temperatures drop at night and we start getting down into the 40s, it tends to kill off any mosquitoes that are already existing. So I don't think necessarily pursuing spraying at this juncture in the year would be necessarily be effective because of the items that we need to put in place prior to spraying right now. I think if the committee decides that they want to pursue some type of mosquito control, I think it might be useful for us to probably obtain the services of an environmental professional to kind of review and look at our community to determine if spraying and or larvicide applications would benefit us based on our community, looking at our areas. I know Amy has some information with respect to the trapping of mosquitoes and, the state, I think it's the Department of Agriculture, traps mosquitoes around the state. I think the closest location to Bloomfield is in West Hartford, but maybe Amy can speak to the results of that and anything else, obviously, that she can add.
Thank you. Geez, I don't even know what to add, Dan. Dan, you've kind of said it all. But really, yes, so the one closest testing station that the state of Connecticut has is in West Hartford. The process for notification, if they had a mosquito that tested for West Nile or Triple E, they would notify the local health director, and then we would continue to educate residents of that finding. Just to give you some data, since going back to 2016, relating to mosquitoes in general, the district had only one case of Zika virus back in 2016. For West Nile, we only had one case in 2019, and then we had one case in 2023. That case, though, was acquired from Florida. So the resident didn't pick it up in our district. And knock on wood, we've had no cases of Triple E. There are roughly 54 species of mosquitoes in Connecticut. Not all mosquitoes feed on humans. Less than half of the 54 species do feed on humans. Obviously, you know, females are the one mosquitoes that feed, and I use the word feed, not bite, but feed, and it's because they need the protein in order to lay the eggs. As Dan and others have mentioned, mosquitoes need water to breed. And so what we do is we provide education to homeowners, or if complaints come into our office, that a neighbor's property, for instance, has standing water, they have a pool cover with standing water on it. We address that immediately with the resident. We have, thanks to India, have updated and put some information out on the website for residents. We've also started handing out material going back to even Juneteenth Day in Bloomfield. So we've provided mosquito information, tick information at Juneteenth Day, the first community night. We've also been working closely with the libraries. We just recently ran a cancer prevention event at 330 Park, and we had materials there that we were handing out to residents. And I have some other events that we've passed out material. Mosquitoes are a food source to other animals and other species such as birds, dragonflies, spiders. They are cold-blooded. They don't usually feed when the weather drops to 50 degrees. And as Dan mentioned about the spraying, some still survive the spraying, only, you know, the spraying is only usually about 90% effective. And the pesticide, and correct me if I'm wrong with the spelling of it, is resmethrin. And that usually kills adults within 5 to 30 minutes of contact. Usually they'll spray at sunset or at night. But again, not the insecticide doesn't kill the larvae. So again, what we've advised to people, even when we have a West Nile case, is, you know, make sure that you have long sleeves on, you use bug spray, whether it be something that contains DEET or something that does not, that you feel that you would like to use, and really just make sure that you're covered and you take precautionary measures when being outside. But that's what I have on mosquitoes. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone on the committee might have.
I do not have any questions. Thank you, Dan and Amy, for that very thorough overview on what we can do to be preventative in the presence of mosquitoes, which are definitely very robust this summer, evidenced by my bites at all the public events that we probably all attended. Councilor Mahan, anything else or anyone else?
So Councilor Beetham Brown has a question.
Thank
Oh, I'm
you.
sorry, I didn't see her hand.
Thank you both to Dan Carter and Amy and those who provided information to us. Dan, you were talking about larvicide. Is that any safer than actually spraying? Because I don't know.
I'm not going to say safer. I think it's generally preferred versus spraying. But I don't know quite enough to basically use the word safe.
Okay, so I know that there was concern in the room and online about killing other species of insects. So assumption on my part, full disclosure, that might be a little bit better. I don't know.
I don't disagree with that.
So I know that being out in the community, whether it was the event at the firehouse or whether it's the concert on the green, that mosquitoes are out rampant and people are, I don't want to say it, I don't know exactly how else to describe it, but they're turned off on the amount of mosquitoes that are out this year. And I believe it's because we didn't have such a bad winter. That's my belief. I don't have any scientific background for that. But if we can figure out how we can bring some relief without harming other insects, or do some deeper research. I know that we are supposed to wear long sleeves. I know that we're supposed to spray with DEET. I know that, you know, some people have the little tennis racket thing that zaps mosquitoes. So I think people are trying to provide their own safety mechanisms, but I don't know if it's worth a deeper dive to figure out, one, the safety of this larvicide to the cost of it, because Dan, as you rightly said, we don't have a line item for it. And if the cost is out there, we can't afford it. But I think being able to get enough information to be able to let our residents know that we did due diligence might be of some comfort to them, that we are trying to address their concerns. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Council DeBeetham Brown. And when you were talking about doing a deeper dive, I believe that ladies representing the two committees would maybe be interested in trying to work with, for example, Council Mahan or anyone who's interested in maybe doing that deeper dive, so that we can have a full complement of information to make informed decisions on how we could move forward as a town.
Definitely, Council. And I would also hope that we bring in some of our townwide organizations, such as the CEC, Beautification Committee, and other folks that are looking to ensure that we, making sure that we protect our environment while also taking care of these other concerns, because you know, the mosquito issue is definitely something that, like I said, is something that many residents came to me and expressed great concern over. I'm glad to see that we don't have too many dire cases of mosquito-related diseases within our community, but I don't want to wait for those incidences to happen for us to do something. So I know it's a little bit late in the season to address it, but hopefully this conversation can allow us to get ahead of it for next year. Overall, I think the best thing that came out of this item and putting the question out there is the great conversations that sprang from it. There's a lot of education that occurred from just our residents educating each other on different alternatives that can be used to prevent having the mosquitoes absolutely swarm you. One of the things that came up was I spoke to Councilor Lloyd about this very briefly. I think it's a mosquito dump, I believe what it's called, or a mosquito trap. It's a mosquito dump, right? Okay.
The trap, and I have one.
Okay. And so I guess there's many things that we can use both individually, and perhaps we can discuss something on the townwide side for addressing this issue. But like I said, I would like to see that happen in collaboration with some of our town organizations.
Thank you, Council Mahan. Are there any other comments?
Just for information's sake, what is the mosquito dump or mosquito? I'm sorry.
Mine is a trap. It's electric. It is non-chemical. It is not a zapper, so it doesn't make that terrible noise and you see a big spark or snap when the fly or the mosquito or beetle goes into it. So it's relatively quiet. They're sold on Amazon. Mine covers 1/3 of an acre. It costs $70. And I'll share with the town that information. Maybe it may be decided to share it with the previous information that we've already shared. It's non-chemical. It goes up to an acre device, and they're all under $200. So I found it very effective. I've been using it for about 4 years.
Oh, excellent. Is that the same thing no. So, Madam Chair, if you could just give me a little bit of leeway. There's a young lady in the audience who knows what a mosquito dump is.
Okay, I'd love to know as well. Mine is not called a dump, but it's certainly not a zapper. It's a mosquito trap.
So can you just
So
come
yes,
up here?
please. And if you guys could do me a
Thank you.
favor, because I have a dual screen going with the agenda. So my apologies, Councilor DeBeetham Brown. I didn't see your hand because you're very small on my screen. So
Thank you.
India, if you might help me acknowledge the parties in the room, that would be really helpful.
We can vocalize
I
it.
just want to go ahead and
Thank
just
you.
focus on that. I'm very small on the screen right now. Haven't been called small in a long time. If you could,
Well, I wish I was there to join you in that fashion.
if you could provide your name and address, that would be great.
so I think it's like a whole family that like UN. This is a mosquito dunk. And it's a back, and I haven't tried it yet, but I bought it on Amazon and it got here today after the Facebook conversation. And it's a bacteria that specifically targets the larvae of mosquitoes. So it won't even, it will just kill those babies and it's nothing else. So you actually put a bucket in, you put some straw or leaves in the bucket to kind of entice, and then they come and lay their eggs. And
It's good to know.
Thank you so very much for that education. So that might be
Sure.
something else that we can put out there for our residents to try.
maybe we could be our own kind of scientists, and if there were a way that the town could make it like that, people like know what we're doing, and
Mm,
like find their own information.
excellent. Thank you so very much for sharing.
Councilman Clary has a comment.
Do I have the floor, Madam Chair?
Yes, you do.
Oh,
I'm
thank
asking
you.
for assistance with that because I can't really see
Oh,
it's too
okay,
small.
thank
My
you.
apologies.
I have a question as it relates to like large pools of water, because not to call anybody out, but like the house behind my house has an unkept like pool and like there's water in it. And so like my baby is one that is allergic to mosquitoes, and if she gets bit, like she swells up really, really bad and we have to take her to like the children's hospital. And I've been trying to find non-chemical solutions to kind of protect my I guess house and the area where she jumps on the trampoline, because it's really, really bad. And so I thank Councilman Mahan and I thank everybody being here, because it has been a problem. But do we, and from the health department or public health or zoning enforcement, occasionally drive around and see if there's like unkept pools or large water, like bodies of puddles of water just hanging around? Because I know in my neighborhood, there's one and it's feeding mosquitoes.
Thank you, Councilman McCleary. I would ask Ms. Cross to address that, but I believe I heard her say
I
that
can
if a
answer that.
call came in, that they had a way to address that.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms.
Wouldn't
Cross.
get nobody in trouble, but but they don't know what, there's tons of houses behind me, but I just think that we should do more of the like enforcement of just making sure that large bodies of water are just not standing still, because I think that would also help with controlling the population of mosquitoes naturally.
Ms. Cross,
Thank you.
anything to add to that?
No,
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Councilor, I just want to, like I said, thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank everyone that participated in the conversation, the input that you've provided. I think this has been a phenomenal educational experience overall. I learned a lot about mosquito control and prevention methods. So I'm hoping that is something that we can employ for the following year. And like I said, it definitely should be a collaboration with the town, with our residents, as well as the organizations around our community. I'm not sure how we would move forward with that. Is it something that we bring up again next year, or is it something we can?
Councilman Clary has a comment.
Oh, yeah, just question as it relates to like next steps to Councilor Mahan. Is it possible for us to get, I know often we go through like budget sessions and budget season is gonna come up for the next council come January, February, but we kind of get some options as to relate to the cost of the natural lava stuff, and what does the mosquito hub, did you call it a mosquito hub or dunk, DUNK? Yeah, like the sneaker, like those costs to kind of help, and maybe like a place where residents to that information session where they could get some of the recommended like solutions, if it's an Amazon, if it's a website or something that they can go to and purchase it. I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Councilman McCleary. Councilman Mahan, would you be willing to take that as an action item?
Definitely. I'll I don't know how I would be able to put that into motion, but I guess I can say so moved. India, do you?
Okay, I'll make a motion. Well, you have to accept it. However, it was mentioned that CEC and BBC are willing to work with the town on trying to come up with effective ways to not only educate the town, but advise us on proper methodology for mosquito control. So if Councilor Mohan is so inclined, could you reach out to them and partner with them, possibly bring that up in their committee meetings where you guys can strategize on that?
And can I just add to that, that he then comes back and report back out to this committee, just so that we have an update and some more information so that we can probably formalize a motion going forward where there might be some other implications of having town staff doing some legwork for budget implications.
Thank you for that friendly amendment. Council Mohan?
So moved. There's second.
Second.
Thank you for seconding the motion to take on that work. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If that was a proper motion, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it was, but okay.
I'll work the words.
He has homework. He will work with CEEC and BBC regarding mosquito control. And they will report back as it relates to next steps and budgetary constraints or actions necessary. Thank you all. If we are able to move on at this point, I believe we're at the section of the agenda where we would be speaking to Chief Hammock regarding the police department update.
Well, good evening, everyone. Sorry I was a little late to the meeting. I was having some technical difficulties. Let's see. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
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 Excellent. Excellent. All right, so statistics for the month of July. I know this isn't as exciting as mosquitoes, but I'll try to do my best to keep everybody awake. We had no homicides, thank goodness. We did have one sexual assault that the detective division is investigating. We had a robbery back at the end of the month on July 27th over at the courts on Rockwell Ave. We had a gentleman who met up with somebody online, or two people online, to sell pardon the pun, to sell a cell phone. And they threatened him with what they motioned was a firearm, and took his cell phone and his car. Unfortunately, he was a permit holder and had a weapon in the car, so they got away with that as well. So the detectives are investigating that case, and we hope for a resolution at some point. We had no aggravated assaults for the month of July. We did have one burglary up at 1070 Blue Hills Avenue. Sorry for the space there on the address. It was a house under renovation, and someone got in overnight and stole copper pipes from the business, something that we see periodically. Larcenies, we continue to see our sharp reduction, over 50% in larcenies month over month. 14 of those cases are shoplifting. The majority of those cases do still come from Capaco Plaza, but it's down significantly. And in fact, our stats are down for July 45% over the same period last year, and we're down 1% for the year so far. So our trend continues in a good direction. We did have 6 auto thefts. We're starting to see a spike in that. No different than our surrounding communities. We're seeing younger groups come in a stolen car, targeting specific models. We did put out an alert to the community and put it on our webpage. You've seen it on the news, Hyundais and other model vehicles that are being targeted by youths. And then we're finding those cars in some cases dropped off in Hartford and other surrounding towns. So while the number is not very large, it's still more than we do see. So it's a problem we're continuing to track. We do have a detective that's assigned to the Regional Auto Theft Task Force in Hartford, and they're seeing a lot of positive results. So we'll continue that relationship going forward. From a personnel perspective, we continue to struggle with recruitment and retention. We have 4 vacancies. We're down 1 because I did offer candidate Jasenia Polenko a job just last week, so she has to go through one mandatory state test, and then she would be scheduled to start probably around the beginning of September with an academy date of October 6th. Unfortunately, Officer Gabriella Catania resigned on Friday. She gave us her 2 weeks notice. She's taking a position in a nearby town, something that we've seen too much of, unfortunately. So we do continue to struggle with our retention and our recruitment efforts. The recruitment efforts, I discussed it with the town manager recently. We're doing all we can, but the pool of candidates is extremely small. You've all heard me say it before. And the quality of the candidates on a macro level is not as good as we've seen in the past. You know, we're lucky to get people like Jacinia, but it's few and far between. So the ones that we're hiring, we're not lowering our standards, but because of that, we're seeing a limited number of candidates successfully make it through the process. Good news is recruits Murphy, Clemens, and Voigt are progressing well. Clemens and Voigt are still in their training in the academy. Murphy is in his field training on the road. They're all doing well. Officers Traniello, Mueller, and DeCastro have successfully completed their field training program, their 12-week field training program, and they're doing well. They have a 1-year probationary period that we can evaluate them, but all of them seem to be doing very well right now. As you know, my senior administrative assistant, Sharon Dow, lifelong resident of Bloomfield, retired last month. So I've been working with HR to fill that position and anticipate it to be filled very soon. So that's good news for me, at least. From a traffic statistic perspective, we had 59 motor vehicle accidents on local roads. That's down 1 from last month. We had 222 motor vehicle stops for officers conducting enforcement. Good news is that's doubled from last month. We were about 106 last month. And we're back to where we were. We had seen an off-tick for a number of reasons, but we're starting to see that trend in activity pick up, which is a positive thing because that's one of our number one requests from the community is traffic enforcement on local roads. So working with the Local Road Safety Committee, we've been able to target, hate to use the word target, we've been able to focus our efforts on some of the streets that have been brought up as a concern. And then in combination with some environmental modifications and roadway work, have some significant impacts in the community over the past year. We did have 4 DUI arrests. That's also up from last month, but we're not seeing a lot of those cases that the officers are detecting on the overnight shift. So that's a positive development. Traffic details, just a reminder, a detail is when we send officers out to a specific location rather than them just doing it proactively on their own. Was up to 206 specific details for the month. That's a very good number. That's double what we had in both June and May. So we're starting to see some real focused activity on those streets. The major concerns that we got from the community were Norman Drive, Jackson Road, Daniel Boulevard, Packard, Ledyard, Kenwood, and Westbrook Road. And we have also redeployed the speed meters. Those are we call it the Speed Shield is the actual name of it. But they're covert boxes that we put on streets, not the ones that you see that show you the speed, but rather ones that are not apparent to the driver. We're redeploying those in neighborhoods that we have been doing enforcement to see if we've made an impact. We're also deploying them in streets like Prospect and Elizabeth, where we've put some roadway modifications in to make sure that we're seeing some impact from those from that effort, so to speak. We did have one citizen complaint. That was a complaint of poor service on Tungus Ave. We're still investigating that. So I can report back on that next month. And we did have one use of force incident. You probably saw this. This was a stolen car reported on Richard Lane. The officers, when they were investigating it, another officer in town was driving from the police department, saw 2 cars involved traveling at a high rate of speed on Jerome Avenue. He began to follow them. They went down past the Republic. They picked up speed and did not understand that the Jerome had turned into a cul-de-sac in the last 4 years and drove in and hit a pole at the end. Operator was severely injured, but some of the suspects jumped out of the car, ran away. Some of the officers gave pursuit on foot, and one of the officers pointed his taser at the suspect and gave him verbal commands to stop. Didn't deploy the taser, but as I've said to you all in the past, we, as part of our national accreditation standard, we report that as a use of force. So we evaluate it just as any other use of force to ensure that it was reasonable, necessary, and justified. So we're in the process of doing that, and that entire case is being reviewed by us and reviewing it with State's Attorney's Office as part of the mandatory police accountability legislation, because there was an officer following a car that was traveling at a high rate of speed. So that entire incident has to be reviewed, not only by us, but by the local State's Attorney's Office. Bloomfield Volunteer Ambulance. We did reapply and get reaccredited for our Heart Safe designation. As a community, we far exceeded the minimal requirements and are doing very well in that avenue. BVA has provided CPR classes to employees at local businesses. I believe they also gave CPR classes to coaches at Bloomfield High for the football team. In cooperation with Social and Youth Services, BVA has a summer intern, high school student who has interest in pursuing a career in the medical field. And they've been assisting with various administrative tasks and responding to medical calls for service as an observer with the crews. Great opportunity for youth in the community. BVA and Windsor EMS are going to host a joint EMS class September 18th. They'll be held both at our facility and the facility in Windsor. We are discounting rates available for town residents, and there'll be added incentives for those who successfully pass the course, get their state certification, which is not easy, and then volunteer at BVA for 6 months. So anybody interested in that, we are publicizing it, advertising it. We ask for you to contact Ellen White for additional information. BVA's welcomed 3 new volunteers over the past month, which is outstanding. Each member is progressing well. And we have purchased some vital equipment for our ambulances. That was part of this year's budget. They include new rail systems for some of the stretchers that'll help with some of our patients. And we also purchased a compression device that does CPR, so you don't have to, the EMTs don't have to do it manually, but yes, they can put this device on the patient and deliver that vital life-saving practice immediately at the scene. And that is all I have. So I will stop my screen rather, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Councilman McCleary has a comment.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief, for that. A few questions. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
the report. The Traffic Common or the Road Safety Committee, I've been hearing a number of complaints around the community about wanting traffic common measures. Maybe at the next Public Safety Committee meeting, can you provide an update? Because that committee doesn't report out to a committee, but if it's okay, if you can report out as to what what neighborhoods have submitted signatures
Sure.
or have inquired.
I can have, we could invite Jonathan TC, and he has a whole spreadsheet on exactly where we are on all the efforts we've been doing in town.
Yeah, because I know that is one of the main hot topics, and people are starting to ask for it as they travel around
Absolutely.
town and see other community or neighborhoods with that. My second thing is maybe it's through you, Madam Chair, to the town manager. If we can get I know there was an auto accident off of Blue Hills Avenue, and there was one I think over near the high school, in the neighborhood behind the high school. I think that was Saturday or Sunday, where a car almost went into somebody's front house, but I think the steps stopped the car from going through.
Right.
We are seeing a number of those things happen. And again, it is because of, in my view, the way our streets are designed and what they were originally intended for. This was a rural farming community, and now we are moving in more to a urban suburban. And we have sprawl, and we have apartments going up, more cars on the vehicle. And I, again, am calling for a comprehensive townwide traffic study. And if we can kind of get that for the next budget season to kind of figure out, if I'm here or the next council, figure out what it would cost to figure out what is causing all of these auto accidents and whatever on our roadways, I think would be good. And then my last comment is as it relates to retention. Have we tried to figure out, I know we can't go back to a pension fund, but have we tried to figure out any creative benefits that we can offer our police officers to try to keep them here in town? Like outside of, like, because I know they have been mentioning going back to the pension fund, and the reason why a lot of officers are leaving is because some communities offer that. We are not, and I think I can speak for this committee, we're not in a position to move back to a pension fund, but I know the National Leagues of Cities just published something at from their last conference on municipalities looking at other creative ways to offer other incentives to try to retain police officers and public employees, because that has been an issue when it comes to local government. And so I don't know if that's for the town manager or you to look at some creative ways and offerings that has minimum budget impact that we can have to try to entice to keep our officers and local employees here in the town of Bloomfield. Thank you.
So if I could just, I think it was long questions, but I'll try and get to two of them. The recruitment and retention, just had a meeting last week. It's my second week meeting so far with Mr. Schenk and Rosa Matias from HR to talk about ways to increase our attraction, if you will, for both certified and non-certified potential candidates. And that's from a recruitment perspective. And what that means is non-certified would be somebody who's applying to be a police officer, who's never had any experience being a police officer before. The number of applicants to Bloomfield and every other community in Connecticut are way down. You know, we used to host a test. We would get 200 to 300 applicants for 1 or 2 positions on the department. Now we have 4 open positions. Last time we got 27 applicants, 7 passed through the written test and the oral board. And of those 7, we got 1. So it's not just us, it's every town. I talked to one of my contemporaries, I won't give the town away, said he hasn't been able to hire a non-certified candidate in over 9 months because they're just not getting quality candidates apply. So what we're also focusing on our efforts on is trying to be as attractive as we can to potential transfers or certified officers, people who are police officers in another community who may be either dissatisfied with where they are or who are looking to make a move for any number of other personal or professional reasons. We want to make sure that we're as attractive as we can. So I've been working with Mr. Schenk and Ms. Matias on that. From a retention perspective, I'll be very honest with you, police officers in Bloomfield at least leave for a number of different reasons. It's not all retirement plan generated. That is a concern that's been brought up, and I've shared that with the council before. But in many cases, it's personal or professional reasons. They want to go to a different community. They see opportunity at another community. Or, and I've talked about this in the past, they're being recruited by other communities with attractive certified incentives, hiring bonuses, coming in at higher pay, things like that, that make it difficult for us to compete. And now I see my boss at the lectern, so I'm going to be quiet.
I think the chief has adequately articulated the difficulties in both the recruitment area and in the retention area for not only police, but for public employees in general. In my 50 years of experience in the public sector, I've never seen such a dry period in terms of individuals interested in serving our public. As the chief has indicated, this is not strictly limited to Bloomfield, but is a national problem. I was just discussing it the other day with the search firm CEO that we've hired to look for a new town manager. I've also experienced it with the accreditation team leader who recently was visiting the police department to reaccredit us, which we hopefully will complete here in November when the chief is able to go out and receive our approval. I think that some of the things that we're looking at, and the chief has talked about this, is that recruitment is one thing. You know, basically retention is another. And what we're looking at is trying to recruit certified officers potentially by offering them equity in terms of their prior experience with Bloomfield. We should always keep in mind that any changes that we make to any of these processes require approval by the bargaining unit. So far in my discussions and the chief's discussions with the bargaining unit, they've been receptive to at least listening. They're aware of the problem. And I think that essentially what we're looking at is working towards something that we feel works for Bloomfield and for the public safety professions. So I'm optimistic that we hopefully can come up with something in the next several months that the council will look at and say, implement it. We believe we can put a financial package together that is acceptable not only to the applicants that we're recruiting and retaining, but also something that fits in within the town's existing financial picture with our budget. Back onto the mosquito issue, we're more than happy to look at various options that have been expressed this evening and look at putting those, if realistic, into the town's budget for this forthcoming year for discussion. So we'll see how that goes. I've been sitting out here in the audience listening and have not been up at the dais, so you may not have seen me, Madam Chair, but I'm here. If there are other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Hemmick. Thank you so much, Interim Town Manager Shank, for your report and for your comments. And I did want to piggyback and read a comment that was left in the chat.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Councilor DeBeetham Brown had a comment.
Oh, okay. Thank you, because I cannot see that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just really wanted to say to the chief, it's hard because you're down some officers, but I also and I think every time I come, I try to point out that one silver lining there. So I know that the officers have been out patrolling. They've been out patrolling neighborhoods with the recent thefts. I know that they're out there trying to be visible and providing support. So I just want to say thank you. With all that's going on and with all the challenges that you have in the department, there are officers out there. I see them on different streets as I was also trying to gather signatures. I've seen them in my own neighborhood. I've seen them out in the Capaco Shopping Center, whether it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 11 o'clock at night, because I'm running into the grocery store to get something. So I just wanted to say that they're doing a lot with a little. So thank you very much for your leadership and thank you to them for their commitment. So please let them know that it doesn't go unnoticed. I do know, because I've also spoken to some of the officers, that there's some challenges, right? There's some challenges with what's going on in the world. And sometimes it hampers them in doing their jobs. And sometimes it turns them off from doing their jobs. So I think it's up to us to help them with that balance, knowing that they are valued and valuable to our community, along with some financial incentives, but that Bloomfield is an amazing place to work and that Bloomfield values the services that they provide. So thank you so very much for your continued leadership.
Thank you, much appreciated. And it's a it's a double-edged, it's got two edges, or I forget the metaphor, but you know, I agree with you. I have an outstanding staff. I say that as often as I can. We have not lowered our standards, and we have outstanding men and women who serve the community. Unfortunately, that makes them targets for recruitment by other communities, because they know that we have an outstanding staff and we have a good reputation. So, but that's a good thing. It's a good problem to have.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I do, Madam Chair. So, well, I do want to echo the sentiments expressed by Councilor Beetham Brown. I always tell you, Chief, how amazing your staff is, especially the folks that I get to meet personally that I've come across. They're absolutely phenomenal. I think they're a great reflection of your leadership. I did want to ask the question to follow up on a comment from public comments. I just don't know the answer to this question. How are when the lights begin to flash at night? Sometimes it's 10 o'clock, sometimes it's 11, depending on the area. Who determines that? And what do you know what the decision-making process is behind that? And if so, how can we change that? Or can we even change that?
So I see my associate, Dan Carter, who I've actually never seen at a public safety meeting, so I'm super happy to see him here tonight. But he's going to help me with this answer, because it's my understanding, especially when we're talking about Maple and Brown, that Mountain Ave is part of a state road. So the state dictates when those lights go flashing. And when they don't. We can have some input, myself as the local traffic authority and Dan as head of public works, but we don't have a decision-making status there. And one thing that we just corrected, and I had learned recently, is the state has a policy that when the lights go flashing because of a power outage or a disruption due to a motor vehicle accident, et cetera, the state policy is not to put stop signs up. So we were doing it as a public safety measure, but what we don't want to do is put those up and be in direct contradiction to a state policy, because we would open up ourselves for some liability. And this is where I'm going to turn over to Dan to either correct everything I just said or add to it.
No, Chief, I think you're spot on. The traffic light that in question is owned by the state of Connecticut, and the District 1 office of the Connecticut Department of Transportation determines the timing, and typically they go into a flash late at night because of lower traffic volumes. We certainly can, and I will put in a request for them to review it, but ultimately the decision on when it flashes and the timing for the light sits solely with them.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mr. Carter, for those additional comments. Are there any other comments?
Yes, Councilman Clary.
Sorry, just looking through my emails. I did have someone email me a couple of weeks ago relative to bus shelters. Dan, while you were reaching out to the DOT, I know it may be a different division for that, but bus shelters, I'm hearing folks would like to see some of the bus shelters in the main corridors of Capaco Center and Blue Hills Avenue, not in the residential neighborhoods, but in most of our business districts. And so if you can kind of reach out to the state, I know I tried to do some quick research and they are about to start a pilot program where they put out different templates where municipalities can pay for the bus shelters, but then recoup their money through advertisement on the bus shelters. And so I think reaching out to them to see how we can expedite that or figure out participate in that program, I think will be helpful. So I don't know who that goes to, but I know bus shelters have come up also. Thank you.
And regarding the police department update, are there any further comments or questions? Okay, well, I will echo the sentiments of the fine job that the police department is doing. I see them in my neighborhoods as well. I tried to cajole one of the officers who I met the other day, that he would find something that compels him to learn to fall in love with Bloomfield and stay for a very long time. And he said that he's greatly enjoying his experience here thus far. So, also knowing that, which wasn't said, is that we have state legislation that also is an impediment sometimes to people wanting to endeavor the career. And that's nothing that Bloomfield has any latitude with. So Chief, I appreciate yours and the town and Rose's efforts in recruiting, notwithstanding those barriers that may be a bit of a impediment to enter the career, which I certainly wholeheartedly support. As we move along, can we please hear from Chief Peter Bernard regarding Center Fire District update?
Good evening, everyone. So
Good evening.
for the month of July, we had 49 calls for service. 6 of those were motor vehicle accidents that were mostly minor in nature, except for one on July 3rd, which required the fire department to extricate a person trapped in the vehicle on Simsbury near Penwood Road. Fortunately, the person was not badly injured. We've had a few calls for smells of gas, which were all minor in nature. Couple of calls for power lines down. We also responded to mutual aid to the town of East Granby on July 16th for a structure fire. The members also assisted with removing a cat from a tree on Stewart Drive. And the rest of the calls were false alarms. As far as projects goes, the building project at 360 Tungus Avenue is moving along. The abatement was completed and the building will be demolished in August. So the construction of the new firehouse may begin. I'm sure many of you have noticed that the building is completely on the ground at this time. There wasn't too much community involvement in July. We did do they had a touch a truck event at the Stafford Motor Speedway, which our department did attend with our tanker truck. As far as training, we were fortunate enough to use our firehouse at 360 Tungus Avenue for firefighter training on the building. It was a huge asset to our members as they are able to complete tasks that they cannot normally do unless we are at an actual structure fire. The members were able to practice breaching masonry walls, forcible entry, and roof ventilation. We have had 2 new people join the department in July, so that's a good thing. And some of our members will be attending a fire service instructor 2 course at the Fire Training Academy starting in August. That completes the Bloomfield Center Fire Report.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you and your efforts as well. Are there any questions for Chief Bernard? Okay, moving along on the agenda. I do have the report from Chief Willie Jones. Is Chief Willie Jones on the line?
Good evening, everyone. For the month of July, the Blue Hills Fire Department responded to 56 calls for service. During that period, there were no major incidents. The calls mainly consisted of false alarms, whether they were unintentional or malfunctions, fluid releases from motor vehicle accidents, and service calls. Those were the bulk of the calls. The department did respond to 3 dual responses into the Bloomfield Center District, which were relatively minor in nature. The fire department was requested twice to stand by at the Wilson Firehouse to cover while they were working at a structure fire. And our tower ladder was requested to the town of East Granby for task force activation for structure fire. The community events and training, the fire department participated in a safety presentation that we do yearly over at the Federation Homes, along with the police department and the ambulance. And the fire drill was conducted a couple of weeks later on the property. Several firefighters went to the Connecticut Fire Academy to participate in the program, a propane fire simulation drill with the props up at their training center. Bloomfield Center Fire conducted a drill for our department involving pump stations and tanker operations. We did a walkthrough at the First Cathedral Church, and the Moore Fitness Group came in to give our department a lecture on, or a presentation on fitness for our firefighters. And the training continues to be ongoing, and we have several training drills lined up each week. And I'm also pleased to announce once again that we're receiving new applicants, and the number of volunteers that are responding to calls is steadily increasing. And that concludes the Blue Hills Fire Report.
Any questions in the audience regarding the Blue Hills Fire District overview? Thank you, Chief Jones, as well for your efforts. And it's encouraging to hear that amidst some challenges at the police department, that you are still able to actively acquire volunteers at the fire departments.
Yeah.
Very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
And if we could move on to our EMS report, Lou Blumenthal. Okay, I don't know if we have Lou in the building.
Let's
or on
try
the
it.
line.
The light went on. All right, let's start that again. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. The EMS committee had no formal meeting in August, so there's no formal report. Our check with Coordinator White showed that the ambulance is functioning smoothly, a good thing. And Chief Hammock has provided his usual thorough report of their ambulance BBA activities. So I have nothing further to add, unless there are questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blumenfeld. Any questions?
Councilman Clary?
Thank you, Lou, for your work in BVA. I know you added one volunteer. Has your volunteerism or participation increased since the tax abatement increase for volunteers that live here in Bloomfield?
Well, that's actually more of an operational aspect, which is really the BVA and the chief versus the EMS committee. But my understanding is, I believe there are 3 new volunteers that they're working with. Chief, I don't know if you have that number.
Yeah, 3 new volunteers this month. I'd have to see what the exact number is from when we started to increase the tax abatement, and including the latest increase to give you an accurate depiction there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Carey. Any other questions? Comments? Any other public safety concerns? Okay, well, I thank you all. The last agenda item is approval of the minutes from July 10th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And we will save the best for last.
So moved.
That motion to adjourn. All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for your participation. I appreciate you very greatly in the town of Bloomfield. Thanks, you guys. I just wanted to share one comment before we leave that I captured. Anonymous attendee said, I appreciate seeing the BPD enforcing traffic laws on the morning commute in the Woodland Avenue, Philly Street area, exclamation point. I hope to see this continue for the afternoon commute as well. Drivers still speeding recklessly then as well. But kudos to you again, Chief. We appreciate your efforts, as well as Center and Blue Hills Fire and EMS. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you.